Good morning, everyone. So today I wanted to speak about addiction, specifically alcohol addiction, and what it kind of looks like, what it kind of feels like, and just to offer some insight for those who may not understand this. So first of all, when you drink alcohol, it takes your prefrontal cortex offline. That's the thinking rational part of your brain, and which means that people do not act out of a logic center, they act out of an emotional center. And so it will allow them to be incredibly aggressive or dangerous, or what we would just call also dysregulated. And when they operate out of this state, you just can't reason with a person like that because there is no reasoning. And the other thing is when people are chronically drinking, have substance use disorder, struggle with, alcoholism, that kind of stuff, it's not only when they're under the influence, but it actually impacts or affects the brain, kills off brain cells. It affects memory, short-term and long-term memory. So there's like pretty big issues. And then the last thing is that if somebody is in this cycle of abuse, substance abuse, there's nothing that you can do to get them out of it. That's just the practical reality. There are 5 stages of change, and unless they actually want to move forward, there's nothing. And so if they're in the pre-contemplation stage, the best thing you can do is just kind of lovingly support them and let them go about their life. Maybe, offer education, but it is their choice. There's nothing that you can do to force or encourage an alcoholic to become sober. And the most recent thing is not even to call them an alcoholic. It's because that's judging them. So instead you can just say they struggle with alcohol use disorder or substance use disorder, or that they struggle with alcoholism. So recognizing that if you're in that kind of a circumstance, either yourself or with a loved one, to realize that when they drink, the rational part of the brain goes offline. And then the last takeaway is if you see somebody who is choosing to use substances to numb themselves, those of us who don't struggle with that, we kind of wonder why. But from that individual's perspective, it makes sense. They use it to numb themselves because their emotions are overwhelming. They've got fear, they've got anger, they've just got things that they are unwilling or incapable of processing. And so the easy go-to, oftentimes for certain individuals, is to drink. It doesn't mean that they don't love you. It doesn't mean that they don't care. It just means that they're not at that place yet where they're able to get out of it. And just recognize it's not you. If they behave poorly, their behavior is a reflection of what their inner world looks like. I'm hearing the dystopian view. It's difficult. And until we begin to understand the underbelly of what addiction is attached to, we won't be able to support individuals to seek the help that they need. And each individual is a unique individual, so what works for one may not work for somebody else. But this is just to validate for those of you who have a loved one who struggles with this and who behaves inappropriately, who hurts you with the words that they say. That's what their inner world looks like, but you also have a choice where you get to say, I'm gonna break out of the cycle of abuse, because allowing somebody to emotionally, psychologically, or verbally, or physically abuse me, I'm not willing to do that anymore. I deserve better. You can love them and also make some choices that get you out of that situation, because when you're in there, it feels like you're just in a whirlwind. So I just want to encourage you to educate yourself on what that addiction cycle looks like and what your options are, your realistic options, and how best to support your own inner world so that when somebody completely invalidates what's going on, lies, denies, whatever it is, that's not reality. That's just what they're having to say, to share, because they can't take responsibility for their actions, because they get into a very selfish mode because it's all about them in that moment. And just recognize that their inability to reach out to you has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them. Blessings.